Well, we'll just start anyway with our chalice. I have a chalice made by Richard Davis out of burl, because as we all know, burl is the place where the wood has been injured or attacked, and it protects itself, and it is the strongest place. So it's this lovely symbolic wood. Whoops, oh gosh, oh, almost lit my fingers on fire with that one. So we light our chalice, and in this month where we're doing this series, I want to remind us that we say every week that love is the spirit of this church and service is its prayer. And so it's this beautiful chance in the program this month to talk about what we love and what we serve. And for those of you who've been to some of the other conversations, the idea was to talk to some of our own beloved people about things that they're passionate about and that they invest their life in, because the reason they do that is because it's something that they consider important. And so to hear more about the journey and why they consider it important enough to sort of plow some of their precious life energy into it. And so when that theme came up, selfishly, I always wanted to hear more about Margot and her spiritual direction, because I think I know what spiritual direction is, but actually I'm not sure I know. And so it's this perfect chance to use this as an opportunity to get to hear more. And I imagine some of you are here for the same reason. So I think Margot needs no introduction in this community as our, this gathered community as our Minister Emerita. And I'm sure most of you probably know that she's also works as a spiritual director and serves as spiritual director. And so Margot, thank you for agreeing to be part of this evening hour of conversation. And I thought I would ask some basic questions, everyone, and then at a certain point we'll open it up for some questions that you might have had percolating based on some of what got shared. Yeah. So Margot, I just want to start with, how did you find out about spiritual direction, and what's been your journey kind of with spiritual direction to this point?
I think that probably my first introduction to the idea of spiritual direction was reading Gerald May, who was a psychologist, psychiatrist actually, and he decided to join the Shalem in Washington, D.C., where he became one of the principal resident teachers of spiritual direction to huge numbers of people who came from all over the country and indeed the world to take part in one of their courses. So I was reading Gerald May, The Awakened Heart, for instance, I remember reading. And then being a minister in Plainfield, New Jersey, I realized that people were coming to me with questions that were not easy to answer. They were not psychological questions. They were questions about the meaning of life. What does it mean to live and know I'm going to die? What is it to live with somebody that is dying, and how can I be there for them? This was right in the AIDS crisis. So there were a lot of people in Plainfield who had AIDS. In fact, we were right next door to a testing clinic, and the church had opened up the parish hall for monthly dinners, which the congregation put on free of charge for people with AIDS or HIV infections and their families. And that became a very big thing for the congregation. We had dozens and dozens of people who would come once a month to a dinner, and then there would be healing possibilities afterwards. There were people who were doing Reiki. And again, speaking with these people and their families, I realized that I was way out of my depth. I didn't know the answers. I didn't have a pat spiel that I could give. And so I was looking to some kind of help for myself, and began looking into the possibility of finding a spiritual director for myself, because I really needed support in this realm particularly. It was not something that we were taught really in seminary. And I found a spiritual director in Plainfield and started meeting with him once a month. And that was supportive. He was Catholic, as many spiritual directors are, because they've got a long tradition of spiritual direction in the Catholic Church. But he was very open to my language. He was very open to meeting with a Unitarian Universalist, and he was helpful, very helpful. And through him, I first of all stabilized my own practice, which to develop, I first started taking maybe 20 minutes every morning to sit quietly in silence with my eyes closed, and just trying to focus on my breathing. And I did find that helped me be with people, helped me lead worship. And then the year before I left Plainfield, so that would have been 94, I applied to the Shalem Institute in Washington, D.C. A 2-week residency at Shalem in Washington, and the rest of its distance. And so I'd be in communication. And Gerald May happened to be my spiritual director during those 2 years. And I just counted myself incredibly lucky that he was. He was irreverent. He was funny. He was challenging. He was larger than life, and really a huge heart and soul, a huge heart and soul. And during this time, I needed to be part of a spiritual direction group, so that I had to find some other people in the Plainfield area who could meet with me, who were also in training to be spiritual directors. And that was very rich for me. Then I moved to San Francisco in 95. So it was in the middle of this 2-year program, and I continued the program from San Francisco with Gerald May as my spiritual director. And then I had to look for a new spiritual director in San Francisco, and found somebody through the Mercy Center, which I'm going to tell you all about. It does have somebody who can advise about finding a spiritual director. And I found my practice grew. It was no longer 20 minutes wasn't enough. So it was more like 35 minutes I would be spending in the morning in silence by myself, sitting on a cross-legged on a cushion, my eyes shut. And it's not easy. I mean, I found my voice of chattering away about this, that, and the other, and then breathing back into the center and letting go of the thoughts and just coming into the center. And so it's continued. And I've had maybe 4 spiritual directors since I've been in San Francisco since 95. And the current spiritual director I have, who is somebody I admire enormously and really, really love, had been recommended by 2 friends. And I'd been sort of with somebody, but I wasn't entirely happy with that person. And so after my sabbatical, I'm not quite sure, maybe that I contacted this person, and she said she did have space for me, and would be happy if I wanted to see her in spiritual. I see her once a month. I am part of a group of spiritual directors that has been meeting together. I've been with them since I arrived in San Francisco, so it's been a long time. It's changed a little bit. There are, I think, 8 of us in the group now. We're all spiritual directors, and we meet monthly. One at the moment is on Zoom for a really rich, deep 2-hour session. And I see my own spiritual director once a month, and it's distance at the moment. I hope we can do it in person again. And then I have my daily practice, and as I say, it's not easy. It's not easy, but I now have a practice that takes me about an hour and a quarter, I guess. And it is life-giving for me. So I don't know if that's enough of a kind of bare bones overview, but maybe you've got questions, Vanessa, or thoughts, or.
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering what happens in the time that you're with your spiritual director or you are with your spiritual directees. I mean, I imagine there could be an array of what happens, but what sorts of things happen? How is that time spent or structured, or what goes on in those hours together?
Well, with my spiritual, I'll first of all talk about me visiting my spiritual director. She will always ask me to begin with if I would like to begin with silence, and I always say yes. And she rings a little gong, and then we sit in silence for as long as I want. And then when I'm ready to speak, I will say something. And it can be anything. It can be a conversation I had with somebody that I thought was going to be a difficult conversation, but actually it ended up by being a gift to me because I learned something before about myself. It can be something I noticed in nature. One time I told her that, and this I may have told you at some point, but my family and I were up camping, and I was sitting by the stream on the pebbles, and I'd put my plate down and I had an apple core on my plate. And I looked down and saw that there was a banana slug just beginning to inch its way onto my plate. I have a horror of slugs, always have since I was a child. And I looked at this banana slug and was about to get my plate and flip it so the banana slug would go into the ferns. But something held me and I watched it, maybe 20 minutes, and I saw it in a way that I've never seen a banana slug before. I saw its little antenna, I saw its little fringes, I saw it go slowly over to the apple core. I saw it slowly begin to kind of nibble, if that's the right word, the apple core. And I don't know how to tell you this, but just paying that amount of attention for that amount of time, I fell in love with that banana slug. And that was a huge learning for me, because I now believe, it's just a core belief for me, that if you pay attention to anything, if you really, really pay attention to it, you will love it. So I can talk to her about anything. It can be that I'm having a hard time with my meditation practice, that I'm always ending up by thinking about what shall I make for dinner tomorrow night, or I haven't got any carrots left in the house, and then I'm ashamed of myself, and sort of, it can be whatever I want to say, and she'll turn it in such a way that I can see it as an opportunity, or I can see it as a grace. She helps me reorient myself. So when people come to me for spiritual direction, I like to begin, first of all, just say hello to them. And then I light a chalice. And then I always ask, would it be all right if I lead you through a breathing meditation? And I do a breathing meditation that is sort of a whole body, going through each part of the body, just breathing and letting go of any stress, breathing and letting go of any tension. And then the body is relaxed, and then coming back to the breath, just watching the breath, deep breath in, and then exhale. And if there are thoughts coming into the mind, just letting them go. If there are any thoughts, coming back to the breathing. And then we sit in silence. And when the person that I am seeing feels ready, he or she will speak. And they again can say whatever is on their mind, whatever they've dreamt or seen or read or puzzled by. And a key thing for the spiritual director is that this is not therapy. This is not sorting out problems you had with your parents or relationships with your child or partner or whatever. This is about something very different. It's about, where is your spirit? Where is your longing? And touching in, helping people to touch into, what are you longing for? What is it that you really ache for?
Hmm. Interesting. It's much more led by the person's own sharing than I would have imagined. I would have thought it would have been more questions and things like, where have you seen God or spirit in the world? Or, but it sounds not at all that structured or that
That's not
director
how it
led.
is. That's not how it is for me with my director or for me with my directees. And I'm very wary about using words like God. For me, God means a lot. I mean, it's a human sound, and it speaks of thousands of years of pointing to something that we don't know, but we can believe in. Whether we call it the creation or love or the great tremendum. But I really take my cue from the person who is sitting with me and just try to maybe ask them to reflect a little bit more on something they've said, or ask if it relates to anything else they've experienced, or and sometimes it will be about their relationship. They themselves may be ministers, and so it may be about their relationship to their congregation, for instance. So it'll be a little bit more in the realm of coaching rather than just a personal thing. But I try not to do that too much. I try to bring it back to just the personal yearning. And I always learn from my directees. I mean, I'm so grateful to them because I think I learn more than they possibly could learn from me. And recently, over the last maybe year and a half, I have become much more supportive and encouraging the idea that something that is relaxing for you or just gives you pleasure. For instance, one of my directees said that she's having a really hard time with her meditation in the morning, but she finds that she's getting solace from doing a craft. And I just said, I think that's a form of prayer. I think if you're sitting quietly doing whatever craft you are, knitting or whatever, macrame, if you're doing that quietly and meditatively, that's a way of praying. And it's probably exactly what you need right now. So I think I'm becoming softer in my responses to people. I have to say that I love each of my directees. You can't not love somebody who you attend to in that way and really listen to and absorb their life and their concerns. And some of them have had tragedies during the time they've been meeting with me, and real difficulties and major changes. And I just feel so privileged to be accompanying them.
What do you think gets most in the way, in your observation, all these years of being in this process, gets most often in the way of we human beings being in touch with our longings or our yearnings?
I'm not sure if I'm answering it the way you want to, Vanessa, but what comes to mind as you ask me that question is, I think that all of us want to be good. We want to be good and we want to do good. I think that's a fairly common human characteristic. And that our ideas of being good and doing good are so often in the realm of doing good. And we haven't been taught, I think, to realize how important it is to learn to love ourselves, to learn to be gentle to ourselves. We try very hard to do for other people and be for other people, and being gentle to yourself. Love your neighbor as you love yourself is always taught in the terms of loving your neighbor, but really it's as you love yourself. And how do we love ourselves? I mean, I think most of us are critical of ourselves. We're judgmental about ourselves. We think we've failed in something. How often do we just sort of hug who we are and think, you're just a wonderful person. You just are lovely. And I think that's hard for us to do that. And I know that I'm exactly guilty of this. I mean, I'm somebody who's tried hard all my life and really wanted to do the best I could. And I think I still find it very difficult to just accept and love me as I am with all my warts and flaws. And somehow meditation can lead us to more of that loving attention to ourselves, just as we are, and getting out of the mind, which is so distracting and so judgmental and so in realm of doing. And if we can somehow let go of the mind, somehow let it go and just come back to the breathing, back to the body, back to your heart beating, if we can just sit with that, pay attention to that, I think it opens up a loving quality, which is different, very different. But this sitting in silence without thinking is no easy thing to do. I mean, I've been practicing for 30, 40 years. And as I say, I mean, how can it be that, I'm sitting there, it's beautiful, I'm out on my deck, it's cold, but it's lovely. And suddenly I think carrots. Why do I think carrots, for goodness sake? And then just sort of let it go, just come back, breathe. It's just it's difficult. It's difficult. But I know that when I come down to breakfast after I've had my time of quiet and done my sun salutation 6 times on both sides, that I'm in a different place. I'm really in a different place. And if for some reason I don't, I've got a doctor's appointment or something happens, I know that I'm more reactive. I'm less gentle with myself, less gentle with other people. I can see it. I can see it.
Yeah, I remember you saying during COVID that it took you the hour and 15 minutes just to be able to face the day. Yeah. Like that, instead of putting you in an optimistic, all the things you're talking about, it sounded like that was just what it took to get you facing the day.
It was just the grief of what was happening around the world, and the struggles of people, and the agony of not being able to be with somebody who you loved, who was taken to hospital, and the separations of people. And, it was so weighing on me. And it was just, and that was, before we had a vaccine. And it took me that long to just sort of be able to at least come up to the surface. But now, it's less anxious making, I think. I mean, most people in San Francisco have been vaccinated, and not all, but most. And I think we're getting used to living with masks and distancing and being careful. And but yeah, I mean, I'm just a believer in the importance of having time to breathe and try to be present to what I call the love, and getting in touch with something which I think is the greater love which connects us, and to do that on a regular basis. And it really helps to do it in the same place. It helps to do it at the same time of day if you can, because these are all just little cues that will help you. Some people will light a chalice, or they'll have a bowl of water or something, but for me, it's just closing my eyes. And because I'm outdoors, I hear the sea, and I hear the birds, and I hear somebody starting his truck every morning. And to begin with, that was an irritation, but now he's part of my morning symphony. So I look forward to hearing his truck start. And there's a neighbor, a Chinese man, who sits 2 doors down from me on his deck. And to begin with, again, I felt this was an intrusion. He was new in the neighborhood, but now I really welcome the sort of congregation of us sitting out there. It's really lovely. I don't know him. And there's a mourning dove that I usually hear, which I always hope to hear because I love that. So I can hear, but I can't see. And it's just lovely. It's just really lovely.
Well, why don't we see if any of you folks have questions or things you wanted to add. And there's not a lot of us, so I can see all of you on my screen. If you are not on screen, I guess you can use technology to let me know in the chat or something that you have a thought or a question. Nancy, are you leaning in because you have something you want to say? Nancy Hardy?
No,
okay.
I just wish I had Margot's discipline because I think it takes a lot of discipline though to do that every day. And when I hear you, it makes me want to do that.
Well, don't begin with a long time. I mean, if you can manage to even sit quietly for 10 minutes, it's something. And the one time in the day that, for me anyway, is I will know it won't be interrupted and I know I can commit to it is when I get up. So I just get up, get dressed, brush my teeth, wash my face, and then I'm there. And, for most of us, 10 minutes could be doable. The question is whether, and it takes time, it's not going to be sort of wonderful the first day necessarily. But if over time you notice that the quality of your day changes at all, just watch that. Oh, somebody was rather unpleasant to me on the bus. Did I immediately sort of jump up and think, how rude? Or did I just sort of say, well, they must be having a hard day? Kind of what was my response? Was I influenced by my quieting, centering, getting in touch with the love inside me? And that has carried into my day.
Thank you.
Betsy.
Yeah, I was struck by you saying that both for yourself and, other teachers or directors that you've had, you start the time together with the silence and the meditation. And then I guess I can see it if you feel like you need to be better centered, or maybe people come and aren't sure what they want to talk about until they've sat with themselves for a while. But I almost would think it would maybe come in the middle or toward the end when people would want to let what has been discussed sink in.
Well, there is a lot of silence during spiritual direction. So it may be that the person that I'm seeing is silent and I will remain silent.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can have maybe 3 or 4 minutes, even 5 minutes of silence.
Mm-hmm.
And that is wonderful. I think what you said at the beginning about the beginning is that people come in when we were meeting in person, they come in off the street or off their bicycle or off their car or whatever, and they've still got a lot of the world and the street and everything in them. So their mind is still kind of going, and then am I in time, and I'm getting up there. Of course, on a telephone call or a Zoom, that's different, but you've still been in your house or in your office or in the church or wherever. You've been in another environment with other things happening. And so coming in and just being quiet for a while gives you the opportunity to let all of that kind of sink down, and then begin to have stirring inside you, something that you're unsure about, or something that you really were touched by, or something that's haunting you. And then just speak when you feel that that's what you want to bring into the room.
Actually, I can think of a parallel. I mean, in our pagan rituals, we always start with a grounding sort of meditation. It can be partly active. And especially when somebody does a really good job, like Nancy Buffum often does, it can take 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I, often by the end I say, I needed all that time to really be here.
Yeah.
Engaged.
So my breathing meditation with people, if that's, and this is how I normally start. So the breathing meditation going through the whole body takes, I would say, 5 or 6 minutes, and then into silence. And yeah, I hope that it's helpful for people. I think it is.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. I can't hear you. Are you muted?
I put the picture on. I forgot you had to put the other on.
It helps. It helps.
It does help. I thought you could just sort of understand me. Anyway, what I wanted to say was I have been doing some guided meditation with Minister Emeritus from the Sausalito Presbyterian Church, Reverend George McLeod. And what he has done is we've been doing it over Zoom, but he does a different kind of music every time, some piece that he likes, and it's always different. And sometimes it will be and then we go into a 10-minute meditation, just what you're talking about. And I'm almost there. I'm not quite. I can be quiet for, believe it or not, I can be quiet for that period of time. And then the way he ends it is he plays this Sam Baker song called "Go in Peace," and go in peace, go in kindness, go in love, go in faith. It's beautiful, and that kind of moves everything out. And so that's what I'm trying to do. And I didn't know what spiritual direction was, but it sounds like I'm doing the kind of thing you think is really the thing that brings out our love the way we're supposed to do it.
I think it sounds as if that's a form of spiritual direction. I mean, there's many different ways of spiritual direction. And for some people, it'll be far more biblically based or more Christian centered. Some people, it'll be more pagan centered and with pagan rituals and pagan traditions. So there are many different ways. But it seems to me that what we're trying to do is to get us into a heart space of, if you will, expanding our heart, expanding our love, so that it encompasses not only ourselves, but the larger world, so that we're able to move out into the world with all its challenges in a more loving, gentle way.
Yes.
And, I think that's the hope. And it sounds like what you're doing with this person who's leading the meditation and the silence, it sounds lovely.
Except I didn't know what you have put words to it, which is what I really needed. I've been studying. Do you know Richard Rohr's Falling?
Yeah, absolutely.
Falling Upward? Yeah. Okay, so I read that, and I've been doing he has those little. I got the workbook.
Good. Good.
But what you just said is, I guess, what I was looking for. I'm moving towards a more gentle, loving way. And that's what this whole thing is about, right? So we get a sense of it. And I think what I haven't been doing is, because I also try and journal every morning. And I haven't written down what I'm grateful for each day. Why not? Why haven't I done that? But that's what I'm hearing from you, that idea of getting a self-expression for the sense of love is what is a really positive thing that comes out of meditation.
I think it is. I don't know that I would say you need to every day sit down and write what you're grateful for, but just even thinking during the day, oh, I'm grateful for this, or I'm grateful for that. Maybe it would help you make a list of things in the morning after your quiet time. It might. And then you would at least have it to sort of refer back to if you are in a complete frantic mood in the middle of the day. Okay, well, 4 hours ago, I was grateful for this. But just sort of being creative about ways in which you can be mindful about what you're doing, so that even the chores that you do, I mean, if you're, I don't know, cleaning the basin or cooking or gardening or ironing, just if you can pause for a moment and say, oh my goodness, I'm able to do this. And isn't this amazing what I'm seeing, what I'm looking at, what I'm touching? Just to kind of encourage the room for wonder and awe. Because I think the more of those qualities that you touch into, the less the fear, the anxiety, the stress, the anger can, you're taking up the space for something better, in my opinion. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's wonderful that you're doing that.
Oh.
No, don't say, it is wonderful that you're doing that.
Right. Thank you. It is. Yes, that's something I'm trying to do. I'm not good at it yet, but yes, thank you.
You're doing it.
Yeah.
I like that idea about it fills up space, and so fear and anxiety and all those emotions don't have room to enter the room because or the inner space, because you've filled it up with something that is the antithesis of those emotions. Because the truth is, if we let fear and when we let fear and anxiety and worry in, then we also invite in a whole bunch of practices that are not life-giving, right? Then we need to quiet those feelings. And unless we're very self-aware and, go for a walk and, sing or do something positive, the easier reactive thing is some form of self-soothing that can be less healthy, right?
Absolutely. And that is particularly true during the pandemic. I mean, people have tried to quench their anxieties and their fears and their distress in general. And we've seen what happens. I mean, more alcohol consumption, more drug use. It's not been healthy for a lot of people, overeating, just a lot of things.
Or like chronic stress things, right? I mean, both of my parents have had shingles during this, right? So if you don't quell it, it shows up in other ways.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mary.
I'm doing the practice with Elena Perez every 3 times a week, actually. And it's a half an hour. And I've really been quite consistent for the last year and a half that leading it. And it really does start my morning very I'm just focusing, just spending time quietly and focusing. And she does a guided meditation. So it is. And anyway, but I'm really pleased with it. And I know it's helped me, through the COVID. And my son had an accident and was in the hospital, and it helped me through that time. So anyway.
And I hope that you'll continue with it. I mean, post COVID and post whatever, because once you've developed the practice, it's a precious thing to keep with it, because we never know what life's going to offer us.
What you pointed out is really interesting. It just when you say the word and when you do it, reduced focus. It's a different feeling.
Yeah.
You're just focusing. But anyway, but I'd like you, and you did that meditation for us when you did an introduction to meditation a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
Uh,
John Buren's.
yeah. Will you do that with us tonight?
The breathing meditation.
Yeah, I'd like that too.
In fact, Margot requested that we end tonight with some meditation and silence. So you all have set her up beautifully for her
I will
secret dream and wish, and in fact, request. So yeah, so I don't know, there's I was sort of keeping an eye on the clock, Margot, because I didn't know how much time you wanted for that. So I don't know if there's someone else who feels like they've had a burning
We've got time for more.
Okay. There's anyone who has a burning question that they haven't.
Jeannie
Sorry.
would like to ask about finding a spiritual director. How do we do that?
You set up our other last question, Jeannie. This is a great group.
I called my spiritual director and asked her if the Mercy Center still had somebody there who would be able to help you find a spiritual director. And she said, yes, they do. So there is somebody called Sister Jean Evans. And how can I get to you most easily?
If you give me the information, I'll just type it into the chat, and everyone who can look at the chat can look at it. And
give it to you now or afterwards? I can give it.
That's true. I can email it to everybody. Excuse me. I took a snapshot of everyone who's in tonight, so I can email everybody the information.
Okay, great. Well, after we finish, I will send you the information, Vanessa, if you could be kind enough to do that. That would be
sure, of course. Yeah.
And what that involved when I first went there, when I came to San Francisco, came to the church, was that I went down for an in-person interview with not this person, but another person. And she asked kind of what tradition I was from. And so I said Unitarian Universalist. And I would like to meet with somebody who was not too, strictly Catholic and would only use Catholic language, because that wouldn't really work for me. And so she chose two people she knew were fairly ecumenical. And there was one person who lived in the Richmond. And so I went to visit with her. And so I met with her for a year or two when we first came here. So I presume this is what this person can also do, and tell you where you might, contact somebody who would be offering spiritual direction. Another thing just to mention is that personally, I don't ask for anybody to pay me for spiritual direction, but I ask that they donate to the church. But most spiritual directors do charge. I pay my spiritual director. And so it's something they would give the money presumably to their church or whatever. But just
are the windows shut? Okay.
Just so you know that most spiritual directors will charge you something. It may not be very much. It may be a sliding scale. I don't know, but that is common practice. Many people make their living from being a spiritual director. Are there any other questions while we're still kind of in the...
Is everything okay?
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. Somebody came in to heat my meal up for me. One last quick question. I had the opportunity of having a Unitarian minister in another church on the East Coast offer to be a spiritual director, but she was concerned that she felt she would need permission from either you, Vanessa, Reverend Vanessa, or from our church. Is permission like that required?
No. No, it's an entirely private thing that you contact with somebody who is going to be a spiritual director for you. It's nothing really. I mean, you can tell your minister if you want to, but it's not really a church thing. Somebody else wanted to. Yes, you wanted to.
Or did Eleanor? Were you raising your hand?
Yes.
I can't remember. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Hi, everybody. It's so nice to see you all this evening. And thank you for the excellent food for thought. Margot, I'm curious, I'm in a stage right now where I have two little ones. I have a 4.5-year-old and a baby who's almost 4 months. So mornings aren't my own, it's the baby gets her milk and there's all the busyness of life. Are there any thoughts you can share about intersections between parenting and spirituality and practices? Obviously there's a lot in the everyday. There's so much beauty in that, but any reflections you have?
Also a lot of challenges too. Is there any time in the day that they're both napping, or that's probably filled up with making all the things you have to do done while they're quiet?
Yeah, and the trick is I'll start back to work next week, so it's a big momentous time. So then it will be all those demands too. But I think there are moments that I can carve out for myself.
Even if to begin with it were just 5 minutes. I mean, 10 is really kind of minimal, but just even 5 minutes, if you can close the door and just be quiet by yourself and just say, this is my time for me. This is my time to breathe. This is my time just to think of my breathing, so that at least you've got a taste of it every day. But if you can do it every day, because that makes a difference, and try to have that time come out into your parenting and your job related activities, so that you just see the beauty and the good in each of those things that you're doing. Because I had a lot of children. I mean, I still have a lot of children, and dealing with so many people who are little and needing you and fighting with each other and hungry and whatever. You need everything that you can possibly touch into. And so for your own well-being and the well-being of your children, that if you can begin to develop a pattern of just taking 5 minutes, even just say, this is my time. And so they will learn as they grow older, this is mommy's time. She just takes this time for herself. She just needs 5 minutes, and she's a lot nicer when she's had it. But somehow it's so easy to give yourself completely to your children and a job. And I beg you, try to take 5 minutes somewhere during the day, because it'll grow. It'll be a seed for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And bless you, it's not so easy to handle all of that. Yeah. So we are coming toward the end of our time together, and I would like to take this opportunity just to invite you into a breathing. And take a deep breath in, and then exhale. And another deep breath in, and then exhale. The next deep breath in, become aware of your feet on the ground, which supports you, and then exhale. The next deep breath in, become aware of the seat under your thighs, which supports you, and then exhale. Deep breath in and become aware of the back of the seat behind you, the back of the chair, supporting you, and then exhale. Your body is now supported and safe, and you can begin to turn your attention just to the deep breathing. Deep breathe in, and exhale. Another deep breath in, and exhale. On the next deep breath in, imagine the breath coming into the top of your head, flowing out over your scalp, over your face. Relax any tension you hold in your scalp or your face, breathing out. And again, a deep breath in, and let the breath flow into the top of your head, spreading out over the scalp, over the face, especially relaxing the muscles around the jaw and the mouth. Breathe out. Now another deep breath in, and let the breath, as it were, flow into the neck muscles, the shoulder muscles, down the upper arm, over the elbow, along the forearm, wrist, hands, and out the fingertips, breathing out any stress you hold in your neck, shoulders, or arms. And again, a deep breath in, and let the breath, as it were, enter the neck muscles, the shoulder muscles, the upper arm, over the elbow, flowing down the forearm, over the wrists, across the hands, and out the fingertips, releasing any tension, any stress you hold in your neck, your shoulders, or your arms. Now a deep breath in, and let the breath fill your lungs. Fill your lungs, and then gently massage the heart muscle. Down into the abdominal area, relaxing all the organs. Breathe out any stress you hold in your core body. Breathe it out, let it go. And again, a deep breath in, and let the breath we share fill your lungs. Fill your lungs, and then gently massage the heart muscle. Going down in the abdominal area, relaxing any tension you hold in your core body. Let it go, breathe it out, and give thanks. Now a deep breath in, and let the breath flow along the big thigh muscles, over the knees, down the calves, over the ankles, along your feet, out the toes, breathing out any tension you hold in your legs, your feet. Breathe it out, let it go. And another deep breath in, and let the breath flow along the thigh muscles, over your knees, down the calves, over the ankles, along the feet and out the toes, breathing out any tension, any stress you hold in your legs and feet. Now your body is relaxed. We return to the deep breaths. Deep breath in and exhale. Deep breath in and exhale. If thoughts come into your mind, just let them blow away like bubbles on water. They're only thoughts. And come back to the breathing. And as you breathe, give thanks for each breath. Thanks that you are alive. And now you can open your eyes. Thanks that you can breathe. Thanks that we've been here together this evening. Thanks for this time of opening our hearts. Thanks for the greater love that sustains us. I wish you all quiet breathing, opening your hearts, breathing with love. So may it be.
Yeah. You, Margot.
You.
That was beautiful. It was so lovely. Lovely to spend time with all of you. I wish I had a tape recording of your voice that I could have right before bedtime every night. Just so deeply soothing. We blow out our chalice. But we take love and breath and the peace that abides with us into this evening with gratitude and love. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
You.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.